All right, let's go ahead and get this started for real this time. Do this. All right, welcome to another edition of Designer's Corner. I'm your host. My name is Josh. I've been a designer for over a decade now, and I'm happy to have you here. Happy to have you join the community. Happy to see you again for another episode. Remember to find me on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and also Discord. We have a Discord. Go ahead and try the link. If the link doesn't work, we'll find a newer video, or we'll figure out a way to get you the link so that everyone can join the community. So don't get discouraged. New check-in system as well. Make sure you go over to Twitter, like and retweet the last tweet, show your support. Let me know that you've seen the episode. Go ahead and do that so I know that you're watching. Last week, we did some Photoshop. Hey, this week we're gonna do some more Photoshop. Last week we did a face swap. We did one or two face swaps. This one was a baby and a man. You can't really tell which is which. Spit and image, both of them. Hard to discern who's who in this Photoshop, just because we did such a bang up job. So we did the old-fashioned way. This is the way that a lot of filters work. Nowadays, they use some AI. We did the old-fashioned way, just using some Photoshop, some brush tool, some selection tool, all that kind of stuff. Last week, I asked you to remember, last week I learned Photoshop. It's very important for you to remember, because we need to document the journey. It's important that you begin documenting your journey and, not only remembering the milestones, but remembering every instance of the journey and what you've been learning along the way. A lot of people, they neglect to, count these moments. Even if you're not working hands-on in Photoshop the way that I am, it's important that you remember that you learned something, about Photoshop, because you'll be able to count that toward your experience. If anyone asks you, do you know Photoshop? You'll be able to say, yes, I do. So, table of contents, here we go. This week, we're going to be doing some more Photoshop. We'll be taking a look at a couple tutorials. We'll take a look at masking, 3D effect, distortion, glitch effect, applying a sensor blur, and dissolve effect. So let's take a look at some of those. Talking about Photoshop to start. Photoshop, the magic of Photoshop comes from layers, channels, and the effects that it has. So last week we kind of delved into using some of the layers and talking a little bit about the channels. This week we're going to really dive into it, and we didn't really touch on the effects too much. Last week, like we said, it was a face swap, which really just involved selecting the faces and switching their positions. This time we'll go a little bit deeper. So, the magic of Photoshop. Photoshop has layers. Ogres have layers. Photoshop has layers. Both of them are like onions. So it's important to remember that, because that's what makes Photoshop such a powerful tool. It also has channels, RGB. Now, RGB is for digital, CMYK is for print. We don't have to worry about CMYK right now. We're just going to focus on RGB, red, green, blue. Those are the channels, and together they can form your colors and or your light in this case, which is what we're seeing on the right side. When they combine, they form white, or any other version. So red and blue make purple, blue and green make cyan, etc. And effects. We'll take a look at one or two effects today as we kind of delve into a little more Photoshop. So let's kind of get right into these tutorials here. Masking. We're gonna take a look at masking. So let me go ahead and pull that up. We'll switch scenes. So we're taking a look at Photoshop today, and we're going to be taking a look at masking. Let me just go ahead and find a photo that we can use. Have it right over here in this folder. Examples, there we go. Dragging it into Photoshop. Alright, I've opened a new file in Photoshop here. As you can see, looking at a girl wearing glasses. We have kind of a two-tone, I guess you're standing in the corner, kind of a two-tone background here. And from this example, we're just kind of gonna take a look at masking for a second. So let me go ahead on the right side here. As you see, I've kind of updated, so now we can see the actual layers and stuff. As I go through, you'll see the menus, unlike last week. So good stuff. We'll be able to kind of understand a little bit more of what's going on. So let me go ahead and right click on the thumbnail of the image just so I can go and change it to large thumbnail. And you'll be able to see at the bottom of the screen we have a couple different icons here. One that looks like a chain, one that says FX, this rectangle with a circle cut into it, a two-tone cookie, a folder, and a square with a plus sign inside, as well as a delete layer button, the garbage can. What we're looking at right now, this mask tool, it's the square with the circle cut out of it. With your layer selected, go ahead and click on it, and you'll see that we get our mask layer. Now, if you remember from last week, it's the mask layer is the one that's sitting just off to the side. It usually has a little link tool in between, a little link icon in between the two layers here. So once you have that, go ahead and keep everything as it is. What we're going to do, we're going to move over and select our rectangular marquee tool. That rectangular marquee, we're going to now go ahead and select half of the image here. With half of the image selected, and with our you can tell by this little border that the layer itself is selected. I want to make sure that the image layer is not selected. Instead, I want to make sure that my mask layer is selected. So go ahead and click on that if you need to. Don't triple click like I did. Go ahead and click on it once just to make sure that it's selected. And then what we can do is we can either use Control Alt or Alt Delete. Sorry, we can either use Alt Delete to fill the layer. Let me go ahead and undo that. Or you can right click inside and go Fill. And with this hover menu, we can either fill it with the foreground color, background color, select a color, and some other options. Now, if you notice on the left side here, I have my black square and my white square. The black square is in the front, it's the foreground color. The white square is in the back, it is the background color. Our mask layer is already filled with white. So with it filled with white, it's allowing everything to show through from our image layer. So what I want to do is I want to fill with foreground color, that's the black color. Press OK. Now, as you can see, now half of the image, let me go ahead and get rid of the marching ants. Half of the image is now gone, and as you can see from our thumbnail on the side, the half that's in white is showing through. The white allows the pixels to show through when it comes to masking. The part that's in black has disappeared because the black will hide those layers and those pixels. Let me just go ahead and select a color just to show you a little bit of a difference here. Gray. Now it is possible to, let me grab the brush tool, use gray, and as you can see, some of the image is falling away. And as we can see from the thumbnail of the masking, that we have our gray allowing some of the color to come through. Halfway between white and black is gray, so our mask layer is allowing some of those pixels to come through, just a little bit. It's given it a bunch of opacity, but for the most part, we're going to be focusing on the black and the white. Now let me go ahead and just inverse this just so that you can see how swapping the side that's black and the side that's white will swap what Photoshop allows to come through when we mask. So that's going to be important. That's going to be something that we look at a little bit more. It's going to be something that's going to be important throughout. So understanding how masking works is very important. This is the magic. That's the magic trick that we want with Photoshop. Let me go ahead and go to our next thing. So we have, next up, 3D effect. So for the 3D effect, what we're looking at here, pull it up. We're going to be talking about channels. Go ahead and open this. I have this open from earlier. So as you can see, I have some channels, or no, so an image here. Let me go ahead and just hide these layers. So one image, multiple layers. I'll get into what's going on here in just a second. So here's our image, just single image here. The background, the white background is turned off at the moment, so just the image is visible. Shrek talking to Donkey, and I'll also turn on what I have labeled as red and what I have labeled as cyan on the side here. Now, even though I've turned these layers on, nothing has changed at all. Let me go ahead and double click on the layer. This opens up our layer style panel. The name of the layer is at the top. There's some blending and styles available on the side here. But from this first one, blending options, we see some things: blending mode, opacity. Opacity will turn the opacity of the image. Let me go ahead and just do it on this one first so you can see. Opacity will turn the opacity up or down, like so. That's what opacity does. But getting back into double clicking on the red layer, our red layer, normally with these channels we see an R, a G, and a B. The R stands for red, the G stands for green, and the B stands for blue. So for this red layer, we've turned off the green and the blue, and we only have red. And if we view this square on the side here, right now it's gray. We'll turn the blue off. We'll uncheck that. We'll turn the green off. We'll uncheck that. And hopefully you can kind of see it's now kind of a dull maroon color. Turn that up actually. I have the opacity down. We'll turn the red, the blue and the green off, and now we have our red color kind of showing through. It's letting us know that the red channel is active for this layer. For the cyan color, we have our green and our blue active. So we have the red turned off and the green and the blue are active. So we have kind of the cyan color as the preview. All right. So now what we can do is take our red channel and we can move it over slightly. That will give us a nice 3D effect. Hopefully you can see as I've moved over the layer. I'll move it over just a little bit more so we can see a little bit better. So that's pretty cool. You know, we get to make our own 3D effects, a red-blue type of 3D effect. And so now we need to kind of understand, you know, that's cool and all. So we have a red layer and a cyan layer happening here. And what it's doing necessarily is, instead of blending the reds, the greens, and the blues all together, the red layer is taking a look at the original image and then offsetting the red channels. So the red is kind of shifting over from what would otherwise be the normal image that we get. So let me go ahead and turn on this. So we have a red square, a green square, and a blue square. And next to our layers panel, there is also a channels panel. So the channels work very similarly. So this is kind of going to be a little bit of the inverse of what we were looking at a second ago, where now let me turn on only the blue channel. As you can see, two of the squares are black. Let's count them as gone. One of the squares is white. That one was, if you remember, the blue channel. The blue is all the way on the right. They're in order RGB. So turning off the other ones, the red and the green, we're left with just the blue. Now, if you remember from the masking a second ago, white means that it's showing through. So even though our layer is black and white in a way, just because of the way that the channels work and the channels display, what it's showing you is that the blue pixels are active. So from our blue square here, we're getting all blue because that's the color that was. and we're getting nothing from the green and nothing from the red because they don't have any blue in them. If I do similar with the green, now the green channel is active and the green square is highlighted. Similar with the red square here. So that's how channels work in a way. The channels are looking for red, green, or blue. And so then when it comes to our image here, our image now is separated by those red, green, and blue channels and is allowed to move based on that. So technically I don't need the cyan channel. I can get rid of that one. It's good enough just to have the red channel here because we're shifting over the red and it's having an effect on what was the original image, allowing white, which would convert to the original image and its original colors, to show through, while giving us kind of that photo negative because we've shifted some of the red over. So that makes a cool 3D effect, red blue 3D effect. So next up on our list, we have a glitch effect. So with that glitch effect, let me go ahead and pull that up. With this glitch effect, we're going to take a look again. We're going to move away from channels more so and take a look at selection again. Go ahead and 1 second while I get this sorted out. Okay, there we go. Alright, so our glitch effect. So I've opened up a new image. And we have this girl with a skateboard. Kind of a nice image to kind of start us out with in this kind of effect. So I'm gonna make a copy of the layer. And let's go to our marquee. So again, we're going to go to our selection tool, rectangular marquee. And I'm just gonna go ahead and grab some slices of this girl and her skateboard here. I'm just going from edge to edge. And I'm kind of going to vary the width of our selection here as I go along. So what we're going to end up with is a nice... Alright, so with that, I'm just going to stop there because this works best if you go in 2 different directions. With this selection, I'm going to change to the move tool. So now, with these areas selected, Photoshop would like to move them over. So I'm just going to hold shift and click a couple times to the right. And now I'm going to deselect. As you can see, now we've shifted those pixels over a little bit. So we're already starting to get that distortion, that type of like glitch effect that we might be looking for. Go ahead and undo that. As you create a selection, what you want to do is put down your first square or whatever shape you could be using a circle. In this case, we're using a square. But you want to make sure to hold shift as you make your next selection, just so that you can... Photoshop knows that you want to add another selector there. Once I've made some selections here, again, I'll stop with just a couple areas selected. Go back to my move tool, which is V on the keyboard. And then I'll move my selection over in the other direction now. And once again, I'll deselect. So now you get to kind of see how selecting has gotten us the new, cool kind of glitch effect. I just want to... all I have right now is the 1 copy of the layer. So let me go ahead and turn on the background layer. And now it's begun to blend together. So before, because I was working in pixels, again, remember that pixels are very static. They're not like vectors. They don't change dynamically. So pixels, this entire image was made of pixels. The pixels span from one edge to the other edge. In this case, let's see, canvas size. It is width of 2930, height of 4396. So the pixels span from left side all the way, 2930 to the other side. So those are our pixels. When I move them from left to right, it won't do anything to help, it gets rid of the pixels that are on the left side. When I move them to the right, it shifts it all over. The ones on the left shift all the way over as well. But to kind of counteract that, I can turn on the regular background layer again, and then it'll kind of fill that in a weird way. You might see some distortion here, so go ahead, yep, zoom in right here. You might be able to see a little bit of these lines where it doesn't quite match up, but for the most part, we kind of get this cool filled in effect between the two layers, the one that's normal and the one that's been shifted over a little bit. So if you're looking to make like some box art or something like that, you can achieve that through these means. So let me go ahead. Now, one more thing to take a look at. A lot of times you'll see a combination of the two. So we just took a look at the Shrek image that was RGB. We took a look at the 3D effect, and we took a look at a glitch effect that was simply selecting portions of the image and moving some things over. So now, let me go ahead and open this up. What you'll see a lot of times people do is combine the two. So for the combination, what we can do is we can start by making a copy of the layer. So that's Control J or Command J, or you can just right click and duplicate the layer. That also works. It'll give you a little pop-up that asks you a couple questions. What do you want to name the layer, yada yada. But you don't need to go through that necessarily if you just open up a new layer like so. And then what we can do is either go to Image, Adjustment, Black and White, or it's also just Alt-Shift-Control-B. So I'll just use that, Alt-Shift-Control-B. Again, I get another little pop-up. It just asks me about the channels as we kind of understood. Now this one has a couple more than the red, green, and blue alone. Photoshop's just a little bit fancier like that, but we'll just say okay because we're just looking for just the black and white image. With the black and white image, before when we saw Shrek and his red distorted channel, all we needed was the original image and the red layer to be able to kind of get some different tones coming in. The original tones were kind of offsetting with the red tones, so we automatically got a red and a cyan kind of offset. In this case, what we need to go ahead and copy this black and white layer, make this first one red, make the second one cyan. For the first one, we'll go ahead and open up our panel, turn off blue and green. And let me just, before I make the other cyan, before I change the channels of the other layer, if I move this over, oh, we actually do get just regular. So we don't need the two, we just need the one layer. But it wouldn't work if it was just one layer. So we need at least two layers. This cyan layer can't just be, we can't just change that. We need at least two layers so that one can grab the original content. So let me go ahead and rename that to original black and white. And then we have our red. Let me take the effect off of it just to make sure that we don't get confused. So now this is pretty cool so far. This is even a little bit cooler than the other one because now we can really see the blue channels kind of showing up on one portion and the red channels. It may not be very clear. Your eye may be getting a little confused about which is which and making out all the details, but your brain is still kind of seeing the whole thing. So what people do from this point, just go ahead and check my notes here, just to make sure. Okay. What people will do from this point is now they'll begin to combine the two different effects. And in this case, I'm going to just grab portions. Instead of going from edge to edge, I'm just going to grab some portions. And once I have some that I like, okay, that looks good. Now I'm going to go back to my move tool again. And now I'll move these layers over. And maybe a little difficult to see exactly what moved, but it's giving us another type of glitch effect. You maybe will see some of these lines of distortion coming in here as we've moved a couple of the layers. Previously we moved the red layer to the left. Now I've moved some of the selected areas back to the right. And if you continue to do that in some different patterns, so let me go ahead and grab some more areas here. Before I moved the glitch versions of the red layer to the right. Now this second selection, I'll move it over to the left a little bit, a lot of bit actually, and now you can start to see even more distortion, even more glitch effect coming through. And so this way we've kind of combined the glitch and the channels. So now this is an even cooler effect, an even cooler distortion slash 3D kind of effect. You know, if you're going for any type of album cover or anything like that, you know, this is how you can achieve some of that. So we have a couple more. We have a couple more things. Censor an image. This one will get into some of the effects. So let's go ahead and open up our next image here. So for this one, we're just going to take a look at the mosaic tool. So with our nice scene imported here, we have our background. Let me go ahead and unlock that layer. And let me go ahead first and convert this to a smart object. Now the reason that you want to convert a raster, which is a pixel image, so a regular image, to a smart object in Photoshop, is that a smart object will preserve some of the qualities of a raster image, and it'll treat it more delicately. You won't have the same options to destroy your image with a smart object as you will with a raster. So with that, this is a nice image and all, but you may have some sensitive information in your scene, like these license plates. So maybe I might want to select this license plate and select this license plate over here. You know, we don't want to reveal too much information nowadays. So let me go up to filter. With those areas selected, let me go up to filter and let me find pixelate and let me go to mosaic. And now this will bring up a little preview window. Let me just back out a little bit. And so with mosaic, I'm able to turn up the pixelation of basically the scene. So in the preview here, let me zoom out a little more, it's giving me a fully pixelated scene. But down below, if you watch the license plate, because we've only selected a portion of the image, with that selection, it allows us to blur the details. So now let's go ahead, 70 cell size 78 looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and press OK. So now we were able to blur some sensitive information. As you can see on the right side, our smart filter here has given us a mask that, so essentially what the pixelate mosaic filter did for us is it blurred the entire image. Let me go ahead and just hide this mask for a second. It blurred the entire image. But when we apply the mask, when we let the mask come through again, the mask will bring, wherever it's black, will bring the detail back because it's not allowing that blurring to show through. But wherever it's white, it will allow that blurring to show through. And so that, and the beauty of, again, having a smart filter is you see the mask, you see the mosaic. So if I decide that, you know, 78 wasn't enough to hide the information, I can double click on mosaic again, turn it up even more. So now we have not destroyed, let me go ahead and turn the whole thing off. We have not destroyed or lost any information in our scene at all. What we've done is we just made sure that we're working, one, non-destructively, and two, applying the effect to areas that we want. So the smart filter or the smart object made sure it was non-destructive. The smart filter added a mask, and within that smart filter there was a mosaic, and that mosaic added in the effect that we were looking for. So with that, that's how you censor some information, kind of the old school way, or if you're looking to create a CSI Miami type of effect, that's how you can do it. All right, we've got another coming up, a dissolving effect. So this last one, this is going to be the last one for today. This one is also very cool, and what we want to do is, let's go ahead and I'll just import a new image here. So now with our new image, I'm just going to go ahead and make a copy, just to make a copy, and I will turn off the background layer. Oh, 1 second while I make sure that this is showing. All right, so we have our image. I've gone ahead and let me go back just to make sure. All right, I've gone ahead and made a new layer and turned off the original one. So I have my dress here, and with that, what I'm going to do is make another copy of it. And so for this, I'm going to, let's call this liquid, because I'm going to use the liquefy tool. And so we're going to take a look at an effect, masking, and then just some brush work that makes it all come together. So come to filter, and let's go to liquefy here. And now the liquefy tool, I'll get a pop-up window. This is a destructive process, so I don't know if it'll work with smart object. We can probably take a look at that. Let me go ahead and try that real quick. So I'll just make another object real quick, another layer. Just turn those off just so we don't get too confused with anything. Convert to smart object. This one's a smart object. You can tell with the little image in the corner. And go over to liquefy. All right, it does work. And with this, now I can begin to change and distort the image. So let me go ahead and just drag out these pixels. I'll pull this dress as much as I can all the way to the side. It's basically just smearing the dress. And if you want, so I have the forward warp tool. That's what I'm using to do that. If you want, you can also use some other tools like the bloat tool. This just kind of makes things larger in a way. So this is the liquefy tool, is the one that basically made Photoshop famous. Whenever people complain about images not being realistic enough, whenever people show Photoshop fails where a person has distorted their image, made themselves, leaner, taller, whatever the case is, and a lot of times they show the lines of where they kind of messed up and didn't do a really good job of blending in the two scenes. This is kind of the tool that they use. So there's a lot of other options in the panel over here. We don't need to concern ourselves too much. This got the job done. So let's press OK. So now we've gone ahead and really messed up our image. So we have our liquefy, and let me just call that SO for smart object. So we have a smart object here. As a smart object, it gave us our smart mask. And let me go ahead and fill that in with black. So now, as you can see from the panel, our smart object, our smart filter is still there. And actually, let's see. This is very interesting how it works. Let's see if if you even need multiple layers for this. I'll let you know how this is working in just a moment. Let's go ahead and this our brush? We need our brush. Okay, that's very interesting. So, even though we've distorted the smart object image, it has still retained some of the information that we originally had from the original dress image. So that original dress image is still somewhere in the Photoshop system. In our thumbnails, we see the distorted image because of the filters being applied. And so because of that, let me go ahead and show you. So we're seeing the smeared version of the dress because of this liquefy tool down here. So when I turn that off, you see the original smart object in this image. If I turn it back on, it takes a second just for it to load the effect, but you'll see the smudge come back in. So just for simplicity's sake, to make this a little bit easier, I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this layer. Go ahead and hide the liquid. I know this is making it more complex. Don't worry, it'll be less complex in a second. Oh. I need to apply first the effects. So let's go ahead and I can't figure out how to apply the effects right away. We might have to just do this one more time just to make sure. Oh, I know why. It's because of our filter, our smart filter. So with smart filter on, now I can go ahead and make this a raster layer. And now we've gotten our raster layer. So the problem I was running into a second ago, I had my liquefied layer, but I had a mask I was clearing, getting rid of the liquefy effect just by hiding the liquefy effect with the mask. So when I rasterized it, Photoshop took the information that it was seeing, which was the original image, and made it from a smart object into just a pixel layer. So now once I've brought back the effect and I cleared the mask so that the effect could show through. So now I get the effect version of the image. All right, so let me go ahead, just hide those out of the way. Let me actually throw the third one in there too. Double click. And move it in there. Okay, so now we're working with just two layers again. This is great. One that's normal, one that's distorted. I'll go ahead on my distorted layer, add my mask, so that now I can once again just fill that with black. So now you can see how we have our normal layer and our distorted layer on top of that. And what I'm going to do now is just go into the brush tool. So I'm going to grab my brush tool, grab a paintbrush that has a splattery effect. So let's go and grab Special Effects Brushes Kyle Splatter Brush. If you're using a recent version of Photoshop, it should come with this brush. And now with white selected, we're going to paint white onto our black mask layer. And what that's going to do with the splatter brush is allow the colors from the distorted layer to show through. I'm just going to change a little bit of the sizing and stuff like that just so that we get more and less coming through here and there. But essentially, with this, we've gone ahead and added in this really cool splatter effect that makes it almost look like this woman is kind of dissolving or blowing away in the wind here. And I'm kind of touching the edge of my original photo here. But now we're allowing that other photo to show through just a little bit. So just the portions that we painted white in the thumbnail of the mask layer are showing through. And underneath is the original image. So that's what gives us our foundation. And then what gives us our splatter dissolving effect is the brushwork that we've done to reveal that liquefy layer. So these have been a couple of effects that just kind of do a nice job and allow you to, you know, do a couple fancy things in Photoshop here. Just as I'm adding back in. If you go too far with your mask, I added too much white. I changed my color to black, and I just painted in with some black here. So that's how you can, again, hide the stuff. So white to reveal, black to hide. Pretty simple, pretty easy stuff. You can do this stuff in just a matter of minutes. It's good stuff to know that's how masks, that's how a lot of these effects work. So with that, that's going to take us to the end of this tutorial. So glad that you can join us today. Hope that you learned something. You know, these effects, they aren't hard. These tutorials, it doesn't have to be a long process. It's just a matter of understanding what these things do. Using layers, most important. Understanding that there are some effects that you can do with channels, with blurs, with gradients, with colors and stuff like that. And then on top of that, understanding how selecting is very important. You want to be able to select the portions that you want or want to exclude when you make these changes. Making a new layer is a great way to select from basically a new image that you can completely distort and destroy. Selecting only portions of an image is a great way to make sure that, you know, some things stay the same, some things change, so that you can add in those cool effects where you're looking to add them. And of course, masking allows you to hide and show in a very non-destructive way. And that is a beautiful thing, and that's definitely something that you need to understand, as we'll get more into that later on, especially with vectors. That's what will really help us with some of our vector work. So remember to go ahead, like the video, subscribe so you never miss a video, and remember to share the video with someone who may enjoy this content, with someone who may, you know, learn from it, benefit from it. You know, we're here to build a community, we're here to learn, we're here to grow, help each other. So share your thoughts, your opinions. You know, did you learn something from this? Did you not? You know, did you know some of these? Have you, you know, done some of these effects before? And go ahead and, you know, make sure you leave a comment and, you know, ask any questions that you have. I will be here to answer anything, and I'm here to help you as best as I can. Join the Discord community if you can, and yeah, we'll be here to help you as best as we can. So make sure you take your time to do this stuff, because the participation will help you in the long run. It's not just watch and sit back. We're trying to be more hands-on. Whether you have access to Photoshop or not, you know, it's worth the learning, it's worth questions, it's worth asking, so that you can learn and grow and get this stuff on your own. And as always, I will have the link to the presentation in the description, and you can find some access to some of these files, Krita, GIMP, Mediabang, Figma, Canva, in that appendix section. So go ahead and check those out if you don't have them already downloaded. So thank you very much for joining us today. Hope you learned something. I'll see you later.